Good evening, one and all. Welcome to the Mental Health Webinar Series 2020 and 2021. Today we are in 474th session. Today we have the resource person Mahalakshmi Ramalingam. She is going to talk about the self-growth for mental health professionals. And she is the director for the Sahayam. She done PG and UG from Madras University. She is doing uh, private practices in holistic healing and training, consulting, all those areas. She's practicing for the so many years. I would like to welcome all participants, today's resource person, on behalf of American College Madurai and MS Chellamurthy Institute Madurai and Madras School of Social Work Chennai and Red Pond Educational Psychology Research Center Madurai, Yellow Pond Counseling Center Madurai, and TNCCA, TNCP, and STEPS Foundation. Once again, I would like to welcome all the participants and today's resource person for the today's session. Now I'd like to invite Mahalakshmi Ramalingam Rajagopal ma'am to deliver the topic on self-growth for mental health professionals. Ma'am, over to you. So you can go ahead. Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening. I'm glad my husband is not here, sir. Anyway, no offense meant. I just thought I'll start on a lighter note. Good evening, one and all. And I'm truly grateful to the organizers for giving me this opportunity to be part of your regular webinar series. And thank you for the introduction, and thanks to each and every one of you who are present here for the session. Today's topic, as you all know, is self-growth for mental health professionals. Now, this is a very, a favorite topic of mine. And why is it a favorite topic of mine? Because many a times I have seen that we struggle with so many situations and so many challenges as professionals. Is the presentation visible?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible, yeah.
And there are different experiences that I've had with my interns, with my young professionals at my center. And I always harp on self-growth as a very essential, work that professionals in this field need to undertake. Why do you think we need to take up, and why do you think self-growth is very important? Now, we all know that in general, for our evolving, for us to become better, for us to overcome our challenges, self-growth is definitely required. And I personally believe that every individual, irrespective of where we are, how we are educated, how old we are, everyone is definitely growing and developing on his own, on her own pace, in different spaces. Maybe some are visible, some are tangible, some are not. But the growth, the change, the progress is inevitable, and it is something which we cannot do away with right from the time of conception till we die. But here I chose to talk about self-growth as a important aspect for mental health professionals. And why do we think this is very important? So here, though we can talk about a lot of aspects, because the time is quite limited, I would like to focus on the importance of self-growth for three aspects. One is to become an efficient professional. Second is to handle transference and counter-transference effectively. The third is the most important, which is to prevent burnout. So we will try to take up each one of this and understand, and towards the end I would also share certain tips which can be used as daily reckoners for our self-growth, and which can come, and you do not really have to allocate a specific time for it. You could just simply get into it and practice it. So what do we mean by an efficient professional? Of course, it goes without saying that we need to have our regular degrees, we need to have cleared our papers in certain aspects of our profession, we need certain certifications. So these are all things which make us a professional. Now, how do we become an efficient professional? to become an efficient professional, we do talk about ethics, how we need to practice ethics, but we also talk about certain specific qualities that mental health professionals need to imbibe and adopt in order to be able to cater to clients and to our patients in an efficient manner. So efficiency doesn't, of course, be curtailed only to the right diagnosis and the right intervention. If our diagnosis and our intervention needs to be effective, I'm not talking about success here, I'm talking about effectiveness. So if it needs to be effective, we need to brush up or spruce up our efficiency on the area of being unconditionally accepting of our clients, being objective, being sensitive, and being empathetic. Now, this is where I talk about working on our own selves and self growth as an important criteria if we need to make ourselves an efficient professional. So, why do you think we need to have unconditional acceptance? When we talk about mental health, there are again various aspects, various fields within the mental health space where we need to meet, depending upon our field of expertise and the space that we go into. We need to meet different kinds of clients, different kinds of families. Working with the families, working with the client goes hand in hand. They are all integrated into one another. Many a times we may have certain clients, their moods, their nature, their personalities can be completely in a tangent when compared with our own selves, our own principles, our own ethics, our own lifestyle. But here, when we step into the shoes of a professional, we need to forget all of those things. And the only mantra that needs to be in our head, in our mind, in our breath is unconditionally accepting the client, irrespective of how he is, how she is, who she is, who he is. Now, this is something which is very, very important. And I've had this experience. I was working as a counselor in a college where I've gone on field trip to I'm basically based out of Delhi. So I have gone on field trips to Tihar jail. And when we visited Tihar jail and we met some of the those who are serving sentences. Being a mental health session, I do not want to use the word criminals here. So we were, we met and we visited many cells where we did meet some of those who were, going through their sentence. And when we came back, I realized the students were having a lot of attitudes, lot of views, and some of them were shaken, some of them were confused, because you have this in your head as a 19-year-old, 20-year-old, you're walking into the prison, and with all our media influence, these students have it in their head as criminals would look something different or whatever. But here we walk into the cells and we find human beings. We find humans who are nice, who are smiling, who are pleasant, human beings who are also upset, who are human beings who are in distress. And to be able to gel, to be able to accept them as a person who needs a mental health intervention is something which is, which needs a lot of self work. Here, many of us may be seasoned professionals where we are so used to, in our years of practice and years of working in this field, that unconditional acceptance becomes part and parcel of us. But I'm talking about efficiency in professionalism when you're growing, where it becomes difficult and they need to put in a lot of conscious effort to not use the word criminal. Oh, he did that crime. How could he be this? How can we talk to him? Ma'am, how did you tolerate? How did you smile at him? Now, for us as a mental health professional, criminal or not, irrespective of that, he is a person or she is a person who needs a mental health intervention. And if we need to deliver that mental health intervention, we need to be able to accept the person unconditionally. Now, this is a very, very important part of becoming a professional. Objectivity. We need to be objective. We cannot afford to get emotional and subjective when we are handling clients. And many a times I've heard many professionals say that they will not handle clients or patients known to them from their relative circles, or even known to their friends or friends relatives, etc. Believe me, with my practice I have been able to handle many of the clients even from my distant extended family circles, where once the minute I get into the extended family circle, I'm only a professional. And that is not, it's not a great magic or anything, or it's not that because I'm excellent or anything like that. It is simply because I practice objectivity. And if we are able to consciously practice objectivity, we will be able to handle any kind of client and any type of client. Sensitivity is definitely something which is very, very important, because we need to know how to talk, how, what to talk, when to talk, how to put across. Now this is something which has comes very challenging in Sahayam. We've been handling where we, draft assignments, conduct assessments, and draft out reports and hand over to parents about special needs. And sensitivity is the most important aspect of the professional who's handling this and talking to the parents. Because irrespective of what you talk about, oh, it's very mild, for a professional like us, we'll say, oh, it's very mild, only the reading problem is there, the other things are not there, so they can handle it, irrespective of what it is in your head. But for the parent, a special need is a special need. Whether they go to a special school, whether they are not educable, whether they are able to go into an inclusion, whether they can write the boards or they write the NAIS, any parent is definitely shaken when they receive the report. So sensitivity is something which is very, very important when we are handling clients and when we are making our diagnosis. Empathy goes all the way, right from the time of speaking to the client, confirming the appointment, till the time you complete your sessions and can do a conclusion. So these are the aspects and these are the virtues every one of us need to develop. Every one of us need to have a check whether we are able to practice this in our daily life as a professional. And to be able to adopt them and imbibe them, self growth is something which is very, very important. So what are the methods? As I said, we have n number of methods, innumerable methods. There may be many methods which I'm not talking about here. Many of you may be practicing various methodologies. Within the short time span, I would like to bring to highlight 4 important self-growth methods which are time and tested, which I have practiced myself, which I recommend to my students, to my clients, to my interns, and this has been very effective. So the first one which I would like to take up is introspection. Now, the danger in introspection, when you are doing introspection, is a journey that you take within all by yourself, recognize, acknowledge, and work on yourself. But what we need to be aware is when we are in the process on the journey of self-reflection, we need to be aware that we do not slip into the space of self-criticism. The minute we get into the space of self-criticism, what happens is we start we go down a downward spiral, and we get our self-esteem gets affected. We may even go to the extent of having developing a very negative self-concept. So we need to be very careful and very conscious that we remain in the space of self-reflection and do not slip into self-criticism. Guilt versus remorse. All of us are very, very happy, or very, very eager to get into a guilt trip. Oh, I did this mistake, I feel guilt would always attract more and more guilt would always attract more and more negativity. Instead of guilt, first and foremost, before we get into what is remorse and guilt, we need to understand none of us are superhumans. We are prone to make mistakes. We are prone to have certain pitfalls. It can be in your personal life as well as your professional life. So yes, our profession is something which is very sacred. I consider it very sacred, and we are actually dealing with human lives in a much more serious manner than what the professionals do with the body. I'm talking about doctors, physiotherapists, occupational therapists, etc., because we are dealing with something which is very intangible. But at the same time, we are not superhumans. So when we talk about mistakes, when we talk about slipping, when we talk about pitfalls, we need to be very aware. If we need to grow, if we need to learn, if we need to become better, we need to experience remorse and not guilt. Guilt makes us go towards self-criticism. Guilt makes us beat ourselves up, and that doesn't help us in our self-growth. And we fail to learn from the experience, whatever we have just gone through. So when we are in remorse, we are able to experience and we are able to reflect. We are truly sorry for ourselves. At the same time, we are able to forgive ourselves. We are able to learn from the experience, and we are careful and conscious not to repeat the mistakes again. Whereas in guilt, we may repeat, one guilt leads to another, and it goes on. The trip goes on forever. So the third one that we need to look at is self-appreciation versus self-praise. Now, there are certain stereotypes where we believe and we have a kind of a faulty learning where we misunderstand what being modest is. Being modest is not self appreciating yourself, right? So we need to learn that while we are modest, we also need to appreciate ourselves. It is very important for us to acknowledge. Only when we are able to appreciate ourselves in an honest and a transparent manner will we be able to motivate ourselves to grow and become better. I have seen many a times, professionals are very hesitant to, even in an interview, when I ask what are your skills, there's a lot of hesitation to, roll out what their skills are, what they are good at. Now, when you are talking about what you're good at, you are not praising yourself, you're appreciating yourself, you're acknowledging your abilities. And this is something which is very important for us to grow better and to become better human beings and better professionals. At the same time, we also need to be careful that we do not get into self-praise. Self-praise leads you again towards being boasting, into self-pride, into egoism, and this can be a long road which would take you a very long time to return, and that can harm you in your profession. The I
Madam,
would go
bathroom
on to
use
this. Yeah,
during the
was there?
phone.
Can I take the questions later? I'm not able to hear you. May I take the questions later, please?
Yes, ma'am. You can go ahead, please, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
ahead. You go ahead.
So the next important aspect is therapy. Now, I strongly recommend therapy for every professional. In fact, laughingly, as a joke, I always tell, even in my family and extended family, that every person needs to go in for therapy at least once in their lifetime. Why? The next question I always ask is, how many of you have visited a doctor in your lifetime? At least once? We would have to say multiple times, because even if a cold doesn't go away in 3 days or 4 days, we are very happy to go to a doctor. But if we are troubled, if we are having a sleeplessness problem, if we feel that some stress at work is troubling us, or a family problem is troubling us, or say grief, we feel that we are going through grief for a very long time, we are so hesitant to go in for therapy. Now, therapy is something which is very important. That is what we are all delivering as a very important and a very, efficient and a necessary intervention. Then why is it that we hesitate from going in for therapy? I do not have a hesitation to say that even I have gone through therapy when I realized that I was not able to handle my moods. So therapy is something which is very, very important. Therapy helps us not just with our moods, not just with our baggages. Many times we may say, I don't have a baggage. God bless you, because many of us may be blessed with that kind of a lifestyle, that kind of a childhood, that kind of a relationships where we may not be holding past baggages, and we are able to evolve in a much more smoother pattern. But there can be many who do have a past baggage, and therapy would definitely help. Then the next thing, those of us who do not have a past baggage, we need a therapist, we need a senior who can help us with our self-empowerment. Because though I did speak about introspection, especially when we are early in our career, when we are young, introspection may not be always possible without the help of a senior, without the help of a professional. So in such situations, therapy does come in like a blessing. So we as professionals should not look at therapy as something only meant for our clients, and we need to actually book in therapy sessions definitely as an annual event for our own growth and progress, and that would really help us to go a long way. And of course there can be issues that seem like a block, now not necessarily a past baggage. Like recently I had this a school counselor from Coimbatore who reached out to me to say, I do know what all I'm doing. I have read a lot of self-help books, but I also know that I am giving me some negative affirmations with regarding my own weight, and that is what is not helping me to work on my weight. So can you help me? Now this is a very beautiful way. So it is not a major issue or a major thing, but she, as a counselor, as a professional, you do recognize what are the blocks that you have, and you reaching out to a therapist will be able to help you to work on the block with the help of the therapist. So we need to be very open to therapy. So the third one, which I would like to talk about, is self-work. So again, because we have a lot of academic knowledge, we do have a lot of training, we have our internships. So self-work need not necessarily be difficult. I repeat, self-work need not necessarily be difficult, though I do recommend therapy, I do recommend introspection. Introspection and self-work can go hand in hand. We just need to be open to work on our own selves. We need to be open and unashamed, unembarrassed about our limitations, and look at it as an enjoyable journey. Many times I've had interns who say, when I say you have to work on yourself, they say, ma'am, but that's so difficult. How can I accept that this is my limitation? Won't that make me feel low about my own self? No, it is how you look at it and how you start working on it. So a very, very important area, which, and I always believe, on a paper and pen method. Many college students, when they come to me, they will come, and even when I'm talking to them or giving them some inputs, everything will go into their mobile notes. And I somehow, I'm old school there, maybe previous generation, whatever you call it. But I believe that a paper and pen documentation and working, how you worked, what is the block, how you worked it, how you overcame it, when you put it down on paper and pen and preserve it, that helps you. And that is something which will be with you for ages, and you can always go back to it and refer to it whenever you have a similar block, and overcome the block easily. So a regular documentation on what you're working will always help you in the long run. Be open to learn, to experience, to participate. Once, I do not want to mention the college. This was a college where I was doing a training program for the postgraduate students of psychology. And it was very sad that I was taking a module. So it was a combination of modules. So I was taking a module on transaction analysis, and some of them had gone through a workshops on transactional analysis. Obviously you have gone through a workshop on, when you go through a 3-day program, and what I'm delivering in 3 hours does have a lot of difference, and this is going to be a nutshell, right? But it was so disappointing to see those students who had gone through the workshop, instead of being more interested and receptive to see what more they can receive from this 3-hour training program, they had an extremely a nonchalant attitude and an extremely non-receptive, where they explicitly displayed to me that they were not interested in the session. So I was really disappointed, and I was surprised also that how is it that these people who have actually gone through a 3-day complete full day training in transactional analysis can be so non-receptive. So where have they worked on their ego states? Where are they aware of their transactions? It's very sad. Just because, and we all know, like, katrathu kai alavu, katradadu kadal alavu. So when we talk about it, we need to be open. Yeah, we need to be able to experience, we need to be able to participate in any kind of a learning, any kind of a training. Always there is, when I do workshops, I always say this to my participants, that I may be sitting here as a trainer, but actually from the different questions raised and different doubts raised, as a trainer also I'm learning. And in every workshop, even when I'm developing a presentation, actually I'm learning, because I'm trying to visualize what the participant will benefit, and then I'm trying to develop a module. That means actually I'm learning. So it is, you cannot be close to learning. Self work is always possible only if you're open to learning, open to experiencing. And another experience I had with the same group was, the management had requested, I think many of you know that 10 days back also, I also did a webinar on chakras and how mental health intervention. So the management of that college also had requested one module to be on chakras. And even before the session could be completed on chakras, so many of the students walked up to me and said, ma'am, I can't relate to this. So I don't think I will want to learn deeper and use it in my practice. They are just the second year students of post graduation. They are not yet psychologists. They are not yet professionals. Already they have decided with just a 3-4 hour session that chakras are not effective. They cannot relate. They will not use it in future in practice. This speaks a lot about whether you are receptive, you are ready for self work. It is not about anything subjective to me, or it was not anything that I need to take personally. But I felt sad that how, professionals were developing themselves and how they were so close to working and experiencing and learning. So this is something which is very, very important for each one of us to take back home, how it's very important to be open to any kind of experience. That the most important thing is enjoy the journey. Many times I've heard people, when they have a lot of hesitation, they have a lot of insecurity when they know that they have to work on some block or some limitation in them. But actually speaking, at the end of it, they will realize that it's a beautiful thing. Oh, I was able to break through this. This was my insecurity, or I had this kind of a resentment, and this is what it is. My attitudes have changed. Actually, the journey is beautiful. So just believe, trust, and enjoy the journey. It's very, very important. The fourth one is very, very important with regarding self-work. Know your limits with regard to client care. When I talk about know your limits, many times I've had this, situation. Like for instance, I do not deal with psychotic patients. Now, that is just because my area of work is completely different. So when somebody who has a psychotic problem calls to me, what do? I very sweetly, very politely tell them that this is not my area of work, and I just refer them to a psychiatrist or another clinical psychologist who will be able to take up their case. So many times I have seen that many professionals have this difficulty of saying, not of have a difficulty of saying that this is not my area of work, or this is not something which I can work on. That does not speak about your limitation. That does not speak about you being a lesser professional. It very clearly speaks about how you can demarcate your area of professional care or professional client care. So you need to know your limits. You need to know what you will be able to handle. Now, for instance, when somebody comes to me and asks me, though I do a lot of work about helping parents in screening and recognizing special needs and how to work with special needs at home and how to work on their behavior. But I do not work with very small kids. So when parents approach me when they are having a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, all that I tell them is, I can work with you. I can help you to develop, certain resilience and work on your emotions with regarding this special child. But I cannot work with the special child because that's not my area of work. And believe me, this has never ever brought me out as an incapable or an inefficient professional. This is something which is very important, and this helps you to grow beautifully as a professional. Another important thing, I do not know how it is in other cities, but referring a client to another professional is something which I find many professionals find it so difficult to refer. Why are we so difficult? Why are we so possessive? We must know, many times, even if you have worked with a client for some time, there may be certain areas where you may not, it will not be your expertise. So it's very, very important and a professional approach to refer the client key. After this is not my space. Probably I would refer you to somebody who will be able to help you. Now, this is something we need to learn, not to be possessive of our clients. We need to be very generous, and we need to have only our clients' welfare and clients' growth in our mind when we are working with the clients, and we know our limits. This is the area of my work with the client. Now, this is the area where the client needs to go to the other professional, and I am able to refer. That is something which is very important. Now, the next point is take your breaks. Yes, now break is something which is the word nowadays, but as mental health professionals, it's very important. Take your breaks during the day, take your breaks during the week, and these breaks needs to be used for your rejuvenation, your recharge in different ways. Now, recharge is not just partying or watching movies. Recharge is working on your mental health, working on your emotional health, so that you really feel completely recharged when you go back to work. During weekends, as a regular process, it's very important for you to spend some amount of time on your own self-development by working on your emotional health and your mental health. Do not kill yourself for client care. Now, these two are, interrelated. When you, this is basically, you need to be more aware, you need to be more conscious, and not allow yourself to get into the space of burnout. And be aware when you are reaching that stage, and stop yourself so that you are healthy. Your clients need you, so you need to take care of yourself so that you can take care of your clients. And never feel guilty when you're sick. Never feel sad when you're unhealthy, because those are things which happens in everyone's life, and you just need to be able to tell your clients that wait for me, I'll be back soon. Or again, be unpossessive, and please do refer your clients to another professional who will be able to take good care of your client or your patient. The so let a few guidelines which I would like to give for self growth are, as I said, we all have various methodologies. Some of us might be following only TA, some of us might be following NLP. There are various methodologies, but here, as a session is on this, I would like to give you some specific pointers, and these are pointers which I practically regularly use, and I also recommend for my young professionals who come to me for training programs. And this is what I'm reaching out, sharing with you. So the first one which I talk about is projection for self-growth. Now, projection, we all know, is a defense mechanism. So how do I recommend this for self-growth is, make a list of the people with whom you have difficulties. And if for those who are the courageous one, I always recommend choose your parents, your siblings, and list out all that you don't like in them. Right? Those of you who do not have the courage to work on this aspect, just list out people with whom you have difficulties, and list out what all you don't like in them. Right? Now, when you make this list, next you have to have a very honest and a very transparent work with your own self. Go one after the other and try to recognize whatever you're listed out as not liking in your parents and your siblings, or not liking in some people in your life. How much of it is present in you? In which relationship? In which aspect of life? Now, this is not a very easy assignment. It's quite a tough assignment, because on the front face of it, you will feel, oh, I don't have this. Like, for instance, suppose you have written, I don't like so and so because this person lies a lot. The first thing would come to your mind is, I am not a liar. Why would I have this in me? But believe me, when you sit down, and in case you have some very close confidant, you could use that person for a very honest feedback session, to ask the person to help to point out where each of these virtues or each of these characteristics are there in you. When you take up this, you will know definitely, when you go through your life, when you go back in your journey and try to reflect, there would be instances where you are also a liar, or probably you are a liar to your own self. So this is a very, very powerful assignment, but at the same time, a very, I would use the word tough assignment. You need to have a lot of grit to go through it. But once you go through it, you will be able to recognize a lot of things about your own self, which you will be able to recognize. You will be happy to work on them, and you would be able to overcome them. The second most important is forgiveness. When I talk about forgiveness, I'm not here because I'm talking to professionals. I'm not here about talking to you about forgiving others, because this is something which we talk all the time. But the two things which I would like to focus on is asking for forgiveness and forgiving your own self. These are two very, very important areas of self work which will help you to grow. How does it help you to grow? The minute you are able to ask for forgiveness, you are your humility levels just grows in abundance, and you are also able to recognize, you're able to reflect on yourself as a person who can make mistakes, but as a person who is ready to change. So asking for forgiveness is directly related to the remorse that I spoke about some time back. This is very, very important. All the time we are focusing on whom we need to forgive, but asking for forgiveness. So when I talk about asking for forgiveness, it is not necessary, it is not really possible that we go all the way to the person to ask for forgiveness. And many times what happens in real-time relationships is, even if you are in the mode to ask for forgiveness, the other person may not be in that mode, so it can only mess you up. But when you are asking for forgiveness, what I'm talking about is all about a mental activity where you are able to visualize this person and ask for forgiveness completely, wholeheartedly, and actually experience and express gratitude for the whole experience that you have had with this particular person. And that really frees you of and releases a lot of baggages that you hold on, and helps you to move ahead beyond remorse, and it will also prevent you from getting into the guilt trip. The next important part of forgiveness is forgiving your own self. So as a professional, as I earlier mentioned also, we are bound to make some mistakes. We are bound to slack in certain places. We may not be up to the expectations. We may have certain pitfalls here and there. It's very, very important for us to forgive ourselves if we want to grow. So when I talk about forgiving self, I'm not asking you to overlook or disregard your mistakes. I'm asking you to pat yourself on the back, understand why you made the mistake, and learn from the mistake and grow. Do not hold grudges against yourself. Do not devalue yourself just because of certain mistakes that we have committed. So it's very important. And forgiveness is very, very important, especially when you experience transference or counter transference during your sessions. And these are things where I've seen some professionals who really hold a lot of things against themselves just because they had an experience of counter transference. Now, this is something which we need to be very clear about, and we need to be able to forgive ourselves, grow from the experience, and move ahead. That's very important. Experiencing and acknowledging emotions in a very healthy manner. So we as professionals know how what is suppression of emotions and how it affects us. We also know how it is exhibition of emotions is also unhealthy. But at the same time, we the theoretical knowledge is something and practicing is something totally different, and we tend to blend and mess up by by believing that not practicing it, not being able to experience certain emotions is actually healthy. So it's very important for us to be able to acknowledge, yes, I'm angry at this moment, I need my time out, I need to handle it myself, and then I'm back here. It's perfectly okay to be angry with your senior, it's perfectly okay to be angry with your junior, but what is very, very important is, are you experiencing it in a healthy manner so that you overcome those emotions? The same thing holds for guilt, grief, hurt, pain, etc. And another very, very important emotion which we are very scared of and we do not like to acknowledge is jealousy. Jealousy, envy are also very common in professions. It is common in all professions. And I think we need to be blessed, and we need to feel that we are all blessed because we are in the mental health profession where we talk about emotions, we handle emotions, we help people work on their emotions. So we are actually the blessed souls who will be able to recognize and acknowledge this and overcome it too. So that is something which is very important. By bundling them up, by suppressing these things, we are only harming ourselves. When we harm ourselves, we are not able to help our clients in a healthy manner. Assertiveness and mindfulness is something, again, which most of us train our students, train our participants. We conduct workshops on this, but how much are we practicing it ourselves? And many a times we fail to be mindful of our emotions, as a result of which we do mess up in our lives. We fail to be mindful that we need to forgive our own selves, and we end up, into a guilt trip, etc. So assertiveness and mindfulness, if we are able to practice on a day-to-day basis, recognizing our space, acknowledging our space, we are able to respect our space, respect the intrusions, handle the intrusions in a very healthy manner, we would be able to grow emotionally, and we will be able to handle our mental health and our emotional health in a healthy manner. The same holds for mindfulness. Practicing mindfulness is not just about meditation. Mindfulness is something where I talk a lot about mindfulness with regarding relationships, and how by being mindful in a relationship, you will be able to practice empathy, you will be able to practice objectivity, and even in close relationships, even in primary relationships, mindfulness helps you go a long way. And the same thing, of course, by being mindful in your work, mindfulness will help you to check yourself and prevent burnout, because burnout, assertiveness and mindfulness are very important tools which you can use to check your burnout, prevent burnout, and if at all you do end up having a burnout, it will also help you to bounce back. The last one, which I have added here, is definitely spirituality. And I'm sure many of you here, or most of you here, must be practicing spirituality in different ways. And this is something very early in life when I was, many of you also know that I'm a healer. So many years back, sometime in 2000, almost 20 years back, when I was doing workshops on pranic healing, I've had some psychiatrists who attended my sessions. And so I was also surprised that they registered for a pranic healing session. So, they came up to me and said, why do you need to be surprised? Because, being psychiatrists, we are the ones who handle such complex cases. Sometimes we are not even able to come up with the right kind of diagnosis, because of there is such a there is a combinations of symptoms, and it's so difficult to match it with the DSM and all those things. And so that is why we need some kind of support system, and that is why we need to learn meditation, and that is why our faith in these unknown spheres is also very strong. So many of us, we are all dealing with the mental health of our patients, and that is why we also need to have a strong hold or a strong connect um, with spirituality. So with spirituality, I'm not going to get into the details about what is the method to follow, because we all have our own methods, we all have our own faiths. But what is very important, or the baseline of being a spiritual person, would be to surrender. Surrender is, many times we handle difficult cases, and personally, let me tell you, this is what I do when I have a difficult case and I find the person struggling. So there have been many cases, like I do a lot of marriage counseling and marital therapy. So when we are doing these sessions, and sometimes we reach a space where they know that yes, the couple comes to a space where they realize that yes, probably we will not be able to continue, and probably the divorce and separation is the right the right decision at this point. Even though we know it is the right decision for the health of the holistic health of the family, but still it is extremely difficult. And in such situations, when they are not ready to acknowledge, and many times what happens is, these sessions will keep, that final session will keep getting extending. And at such situations, all that I do, and this has always helped me, is that night or the early morning of the session, I always surrender. And I just tell the universe, please guide the couple. Please help them to reach the conclusion. Please help them to accept the conclusion. And if I offer this prayer, and whenever I offer this prayer before the session, and just say, whatever is happening is for their good, and I surrender that decision to the universe. The session ends very beautifully. The couple or the person who has come in for the session is able to accept the consensus, the conclusion, and able to go back much more peaceful manner. This is something which I practice, and this is what I'm sharing with you all. I'm sure many of you would be practicing this, and I hope it would help. Of course, meditation is something. Meditation is something which is, again, we all know, we all practice, and meditation helps us to, be connected. And very, very important is, when I talk about connected and being connected to the universe, I talk about grounding. While we meditate, while we are connected in a conscious state also, what is very, very important is to be grounded. When we talk about grounded, you can talk about being practical, being stable, being having your head on your shoulders, however you want, you may take it. And grounding helps you in a lot of ways. And many times people have asked me, how is it that I handle burnout? How is it that I'm able to handle even 6 or 7 sessions on one day? And I repeat, I'm not a superwoman. I'm a ordinary person, but definitely these techniques are what helps me, and which helps me to prevent me from getting into burnout, which helps me. Being grounded is something which is very, very important. How is it? Many times, even other young students have also asked me, how is it that you don't get overwhelmed with different cases that you handle? Being grounded is the answer. Be grounded. When I talk about grounded, groundedness automatically also helps you to be humble, helps you to be objective, helps you to know your space. Your space is just as a space as a professional, and you need not allow the emotions, the challenges and the crisis of your client to get overwhelm you and intrude into your space. Groundedness helps you in this space too. So definitely, though I talk about spirituality and the end, if you give me a choice, I would actually start the session with spirituality. If we are spiritual and then we move into the space of working on ourselves, being introspective, etc., we would be able to handle ourselves, and we would be able to grow into beautiful professionals. I would now like to open the space for questions. Any questions? Any doubts?
Participants, you can ask question, ma'am, directly, or you can chat in type box.
But there are so many. Somebody has said, I'm super confused right now about my relationship and unable to take decision, which is affecting my mental and physical health. I keep asking universe to guide me, but there are so many emotions involved. Don't think what is right for me, which is decision is right. So whenever we are having any kind of a confusion, see, there are two things. We need to always remember that whenever we are in a confusion, that means we are overwhelmed by emotions, right? When we are overwhelmed by emotions, then there are two steps that we need to follow. One thing is you have to release the overwhelming emotions. And the second thing is you need to learn to manage the emotions. Now, once you do these two only, your decision-making skill will get strengthened. So for releasing the emotions, you need to use some kind of a technique where you can use it in a healthy manner. You could either, as I said, you could go in for a therapy to release your emotions, or you could use very simple techniques, what we all talk about, thumping the pillow, or, the writing exercise, or, the jumping jack, anything that would help you to release the emotions. Once you feel much lighter, you could, or you can use, if you're all a professional who's asking this question, the empty chair session is something. It can be a very old session, but I recommend it very strongly. So you can use these sessions, these techniques for your release of emotions, and then you learn to handle it. When I talk about handling, what exactly, many times why are we getting overwhelmed is we are not very clear what exactly is the emotion. Like today in a session, I was just handling a session before this, where the client told me that, the whole of 2019 I was always angry with everyone, and 2020 I was always angry with everyone. So I said, what? And I said, but then I said, the anger was a manifestation of your grief. Why? She had lost her mother. She was a very young girl, not even 30, and she had lost her mother in 2020, and at such a young age. So I helped her to understand that it was not anger that you need to work on. It was your grief which was being manifested as anger. So when I talk about managing your emotion, you need to recognize what emotion you need to work on. What is it that you are affecting you? And after you work on your emotions, you will be able to take the right decision. I hope that helps the person who had asked the question.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. One more person is there.
I'll just,
Sometimes we don't feel guilt, but people around us make us feel guilt. How to handle such a situation?
so that is where your assertiveness comes into play. Just be mindful whether you need to go through guilt. Now, I do not know whether this question has been asked by a lady, but then
Yes, ma'am,
generally,
lady.
Achha, it's a lady, right?
Lady,
Because
yeah.
the society generally tries to inject guilt into women. And this is, I'm not blaming anybody, but this is again, the way our cultural stereotyping happens, where we do a simple example. If the lady is working long hours, immediately the extended family, friends, everyone would raise questions as to, oh my God, you're coming back so late. What will happen to the family? What will happen to the children? Right? And it is very important for us to learn to be assertive, to be able to understand what is my space, how do I respect my space, do I deserve this time for myself, or do I need to go into a guilt trip? And it is in our hands. And if this intrusion from the others around you is not required, you would need to handle it accordingly and learn to be assertive. Does that answer your question, ma'am?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hello.
ma'am. Go
Yeah, I
ahead.
have a question, ma'am. Yes. You just talked about the meditation for surrendering to the universe.
Yeah.
Do you have any transcripts for that, ma'am? I really want to do it, so that's
You
why.
want a transcript for it?
Yes, ma'am. To do that, you just the surrendering. So I'm just surrender to the
Yeah,
universe.
so see, the transcript is something which you can draft yourself, where you would know, because it's different transcripts. If you want, I could, I mean, if you connect with me, I could definitely share a transcript with you. But many a times, the transcripts can be very unique to each one, and you could draft it and then use it also.
Okay.
Otherwise, if you want, I would be happy to help you to draft a transcript too.
Sure, ma'am. I'll contact.
Yeah, and I also conduct weekly meditations which are open and free to all, and these are all working on loving kindness, forgiveness, etc. So those of you who are interested are most welcome to connect with me.
Sure, ma'am. Sure.
Any other questions?
Yeah, hi, ma'am. Thank you so much for this session. I actually wanted to ask you to be very honest that how, in a difficult situation, we know that what universe is actually guiding us. Like, how can we actually make the decision if we are in a dilemma and we are waiting for a universe to guide us towards the right direction? How do we
Yeah.
know that exactly this is the universe that is guiding us and not our emotions or not our dilemma? How do we make that things and
So,
make the decision?
so that is the reason why first you need to work on your emotions and keep your emotions stable. Okay, once you keep your emotions stable, you just when you surrender and when you get into a meditation, and during the meditation, whatever intuition you get, it could come in different forms. We need to be very open. The universe, guidance of the universe can come to you as your own inner voice. It can come to you in the form of someone like recently one of someone known to me was sharing this to me that again, let me put a disclaimer here. I'm not recommending any specific form of prayer or anything, but this lady, her daughter and son-in-law had diagnosed with COVID positive. So she said it seems she was praying and she was in the prayer room and she was actually invoking to Sai Baba, Shirdi Sai Baba. And at that point of time, a courier comes to her house, and the courier message is from the courier's name is Baba protect us or something like that. Okay, something related to Baba. So she said immediately I felt that Baba is giving me an answer. And a courier coming or a letter is a message of something, communication coming to you. So she felt that probably the communication coming to her was that her daughter and son-in-law are going to become well. I'm just giving you a very small example. So we need to be very open and receptive to what the message is. And very, very important here is, say, suppose you want to take a very difficult decision. I mean, you are in a dilemma. Say, let us take that you are going to get a job and you're not very sure whether you want to take the job or not, but the job is very promising. Now, when we need to be, if we want the universe to give us an answer, we need to be completely receptive and open to whatever the answer will be. So suppose that universe is giving you an answer not to take the job, we need to be able to surrender and accept that, even if that is going to be a very high salary. So that is what is very, very important. How we connect to the universe is very important. Does that help you?
Yes, ma'am, it definitely does. Thank you so much. Though again, there is a bit of confusion that remains every time, because as the example you mentioned with the Shirdi Sai Baba, it could also be an overwhelming faith or emotions mixed with each other, and or actually the universe guiding the person, because you
Yes.
want to hear only good things, that yes, they will get better, and since there was a courier, it was linked to it, the person agreed that it is a universe. But was it or was it not? I mean, there's still a bit of
Yeah, so that is why I said that's a very small example, and that person is not a mental health professional. Okay, so that is why I said when we are surrendering to the universe, the first step is always to work on our emotions so that we are at a stable state. And that is the reason why I said we also need to be open, that when the universe gives you some other message than what you would like to hear. Now, that is possible only if you have worked on your emotions and you are stable when you are surrendering to the universe.
got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And one more question is there. How to
Yeah.
handle intrajection defense?
How to handle?
Intrajection defense.
In what kind of a situation? I would need a little more. Is it a very general question?
Yeah, general, ma'am.
In general, or is it with regarding profession?
Participant, you can ask ma'am directly.
Hello? Could you please tell me, are you looking at a specific incident or? Can you please elaborate further? Are you looking at a specific incident?
Vinodji, you can unmute yourself and you can ask ma'am.
See, if you, again, I'm talking, so, okay, since we are not able to get to him, I would just talk, since I'm talking to professionals, and when we are talking about introjection, it is more about imbibing the other person's ideas, right? Now, being, if you are more objective, if you are practicing mindfulness, and you would be able to be mindful about what you're thinking, what are your emotions, and how you're handling them. So, practicing mindfulness would help you to be able to avoid or not get into those kind of defenses. But many a times what happens is, this is something which at least I feel I have come in touch with only with clients, and that why they have got into is would be part of our therapy, and we would help them to handle it. Does that help? I think maybe he's not there, or he's not. I hope he is.
Yes, ma'am. He's not responding.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Are there any more questions, please?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am, not specific. Just I wanted to know how can I continue getting notifications for the sessions that are happening.
I think that the admin would be able to. The organizers would be able to share that information, I think.
You can ask loudly, ma'am. It's not audible.
No, she was asking how would she get notifications about further sessions. So I think that you would be able to say that, no?
Yeah. We will guide you, ma'am.
Yeah. Any other questions, please? So
Yeah, we
in
can
that case, I would
conclude,
like
ma'am.
to
Yeah.
conclude.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm really
Lot of
thankful to the
positive
audience.
comments, ma'am, in chat box. Amazing session like that. Lot of participants. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. It's really
Yeah.
humbling to see these feedbacks. And I'm
Yeah,
really grateful to the organizers for the organizing this, giving me the opportunity to offer these sessions to you all. And I'm really thankful to each and every one of you for your patient listening, and the organizers for the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. It was an enchanting session. You guided us self-growth and efficient professionals, their efficiency, sensitivity, then self-growth methods. I actually noted a point. Do not kill yourself for client care. That is more important for mental health care professionals. They have to take care of emotionally and mentally. That is more important.
Absolutely.
Thank you, ma'am. Kindly accept our gratitude on behalf of American College Madurai, then MS Chellamuthu Institute Madurai, Madras School of Social Work Chennai, Red Pond Educational Research Center, Yellow Pond Counseling Center, TNCCA and TNCPA, STEP Foundation, and other COTI members. Participants, we will have another wonderful session tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you. Thank you.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Well, I am Muttaya Ramanathan and I am speaking on transactional analysis and introduction tomorrow.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome all the participants.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.